Hey, what's up guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here and welcome back to my weekly Q&A session. First of all, I really have to thank you guys for last week. We had a lot of questions that were asked in last week's video pertaining to this week's video, and I think that's amazing. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this, and I think part of the reason we had an up in view count as well as questions asked as a result is because of the little trick that I played for April Fool's Day. I hope you guys weren't too pissed off. I don't usually do April Fool's Day jokes. The last time I did one was back in 2014, so if you think this one was a little off base and a little questionable, yeah, you should have seen that one. So that was 3 years ago. But so I do thank you guys. It seems like most of you took it, with a good sense of humor, and I really do appreciate that. Promise I won't do stuff like that, at least for another year. So the way this works, for those of you who don't know, my Q&A sessions, if you want a question answered in a video, all you have to do is post it in that week's video. Now, I try to get to as many questions as I can. If I happen to miss yours, I do apologize. Just hit me up on Twitter. I'll go ahead and post a link to that in the description below, and you can always let me know there. Say, hey, Tyrant, you missed me last time. Do you mind, including me for the next week? And I'll definitely, if there's a reason that I didn't do it, I will let you know. But otherwise, I do try to get to everybody because I really do appreciate it when you take the time to ask questions. I'm loving this. It helps me connect with you guys, and I hope it better connects you with me. So before I get too further into this, we've had a crazy week in the world, mainly dealing with Syria. Now, I do want to talk about it. I also know that this is a gaming channel, and a lot of times you guys do not want to hear my worldviews, and I don't talk about them very often. I dabbled a little bit in the 2016 election. A couple of years prior, I talked about Sandy Hook, the shooting that took place in the elementary school up north, or up north for me anyway. And so I understand completely if this is something you don't want to hear about, so I am saving it for the end of the video. I'll make it very clear when the Q&A session is over, so you do not have to watch it if you don't want to. I certainly do not want to force you to do anything that you don't want to do, but the reason why is just because I know I've got global viewers, and I just want to make sure that everyone's okay. And this is my message to everyone out there in regard to the incidents that have happened just this past week alone. I hope you're safe. If you have family or friends that are in that region of the world, I hope they're safe as well. And my thoughts are with you. So let's go ahead and get into it. Our first question comes from Pat Canny. I love this guy. His question is, are there any other Halo content creators you follow or work with? Any ones you personally enjoy watching? Absolutely. There are a lot of content creators that I enjoy watching, as well as I occasionally partner with or at least speak to. Naked Eli and I worked on several videos together. Even though he doesn't post content anymore, we still talk from time to time. He's like a brother to me. I love that guy, and I think he made some great contributions to the Halo community as a whole. Also, RC Master, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with his legendary speedruns and his mythic speedruns. He was a member of my community. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he and I did a bunch of project videos together, and he's a great guy to work with. I've worked with Green Skull from Ready Up Live. He's been a little too busy for me lately, which I fully understand. He's got a lot going on, but a great guy, always fun to work with. Other friends include Masters Elite. He prefers that I just call him Masters, so we'll just leave it at that. But he is the lead developer behind Halo SPV 3. And I've even worked with Rooster Teeth before. Not a lot, but I have worked with them. We know each other. But in terms of stuff that I like to watch, I don't really watch Halo Follower. I think he does great work, but I'm not really a huge fan of his content. But someone that I really do like, who does post videos of the same caliber, and I think he's extremely underrated, is Late Night Gaming. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, you definitely should. He's got some great videos, and I hope to do a video with him sometime in the near future. So excellent question, Pat. Our next question comes from Mud Monkey Magic. Do not even want to know where that came from. He asks, what in Halo made you laugh with joy the most? So interestingly enough, it wasn't a particular thing that was scripted in the campaign or any dialogue or anything like that. What made me laugh the most was a moment in Halo 3 where I was playing in the Living Dead playlist, and I became the last man standing. And the reason why I did that is because I was playing on the map Narrows, and there was a little trick, at least at the time, where you could get under the bridge and jump onto a structure that was almost completely unreachable. And so I managed to pull this off. And so all the zombies, everyone by then was a zombie, and they kept trying to jump down there to get at me, and they just kept dying left and right. So I saved the film and went back and watched it in free cam, and it was hilarious just watching groups of zombies just plummeting to their, I guess, second deaths, if you will, because they couldn't reach me. And man, I got some hate mail after that, which I don't blame them for. If I can find that footage, I will definitely post it on my channel. So good question, Mud. Thanks for asking. Our next question comes from Golden Trooper, and he asked, do you think it would be a good idea if in Halo 6 they had multiplayer classes like the ability to choose what Spartan gen you are, aka Spartan 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.? No, I honestly don't. It's an interesting perspective, but for me this is going to come out one of two ways. So, speaking strictly in terms of aesthetics, we already have a lot of those in the current game. I don't know about Spartan 1 and 2, but you know, you can still have Mark 5 armor or Mark 6. Don't know when they're going to get to Mark 7. Maybe they did and I just missed it. But the other way of looking at that is they all have different abilities. I'm someone who personally did not like the concept of armor abilities in either Halo Reach or 4. So I don't want to see those appear again. I'm much more of a fan of a thruster pack than of armor abilities. I want everyone to be on the same ground as soon as they start up. So interesting question. Our next question comes from Gazo Wayne, and he's a regular follow of mine on Twitter. I love hearing from this guy. He's a friend of mine from across the pond. His question is, which character throughout Halo would you like to have not been killed off and why? This is an easy one for me. Sergeant Johnson, hands down. He was the badass of the original trilogy. We have never had anyone like him since. I like Captain Lasky, but he's kind of a wimp. And in terms of Buck, I guess he's the closest thing we have to any sort of comical humor, but it's still not on the same level as Johnson because he was a badass at the same time. So I would have loved for Sergeant Johnson's character to have carried over into the new franchise, and I think it would have helped transition fans a lot easier. Our next question comes from the Devil's Blade Official, and he asks, if 343 does a new Halo trilogy, do you think it would be Precursors as the antagonist, or do you think they would take it back to the Human Forerunner War or something else? Interesting question, because I will be touching on the Precursors later in this video. In short, all I can say is I really hope they don't make another Halo trilogy. You know, it seems like it's been dragged out at this point. If they do make additional, as I've mentioned before, I hope that Halo 6 is a game that they can continue to expand on for years, both in the campaign as well as the multiplayer, so that they don't necessarily have to make a new standalone game entirely. It would be weird to have one in the Human Forerunner War period because, again, you know, Forerunners are a little bit too human-like. I mean, they're bipedal and everything, and they've tried to stay away from that in the Halo games so far. They just want you shooting aliens, not humanoids. So I don't see that really working out too well, and there really wouldn't be a variation in enemies, or not a really great one anyway, simply because the Prometheans, as best I could tell, were not around back then. They didn't come until after, at least I believe they didn't. That's what the terminals left me with. I believe they didn't come until after the Human Forerunner War had ended and the Forerunner Flood War had begun. In terms of what they might do, I guess they could probably take it from a different character's perspective. I'd love to see, maybe instead of a trilogy, individual Halo games, or maybe we can see how Buck went from being an ODST to a Spartan. That'd be interesting. So that's kind of where I would like to see it go from there, if it does. But for the most part, I think we're ready to start settling Halo down a little bit and seeing what new things 343 can come up with. Our next question comes from Gavin Zuniga, and I'm sorry if I butchered that name. I think that's right. But his question is, if I wanted to start a YouTube channel, what would be the most important things to have? This is a really good question, and it's not as cut and dry as you may think. Before you try to invest in either a camera or a capture card, there are a few other things that, in my aspect and just my experience in general, are far more important, and I've had to learn most of these the hard way. The first thing you want to have is a theme. Decide right off the bat if you want your channel to be a gaming channel. Do you want to do vlogs? Do you want to talk about animals or anything in general, but you want to try to keep the theme consistent? I had trouble with that when I first started out, because when my channel first started back in 2010, I had already been in the spotlight for about 2 years because of the Mythic walkthroughs that I did for HBO, and Bungie was openly advertising for me. And so occasionally I'd throw up animal videos, and you know, I feel like it probably threw off a lot of my subscribers because it's mostly a gaming channel. And so when I did that type of thing, it really didn't settle with them. It's not that people didn't like the videos, it's just they didn't know what to expect. And that leads into my second thing that you need to have, and that's a plan. When you start your own channel, make sure you have some sort of schedule, and it doesn't need to be as hectic as mine. You know, if you're new to this, one thing that you could do is just set a day. Just set one day a week that you want to post a video and try to keep it as consistent as possible. Even now, occasionally I'm late on mine, and I try not to be. It just depends on how difficult the video is to produce. But let's say that you decide to start out once a week, and you decide that Friday is going to be your day. Make sure that you consistently post on Fridays. If you think that you're not going to have time to post for the following Friday, try to do the video in advance, because YouTube has a scheduling option, so you can do a video in advance and upload it ahead of time to have it come out on a certain day, which I'll be doing later this month when I'm on vacation for a week. And so that's important. And as I sort of mentioned with the animal stuff, it's not terrible to have outlier stuff that doesn't always flow with your general content, but I would definitely wait till you're more well known before you start doing that. I have started posting cat videos and stuff like that again, but I've set a designated day for it, and that's Sunday Fun Day. So you know right off the bat, if you see an uploaded video for Sunday, you know odds are it's not going to be gaming related. Sometimes it will be, but more or less it's something that's just happened to me during the week, or something interesting that I thought people want to see, but usually it's not Halo related. The third thing that I would definitely recommend is stay humble. And this was a mistake that I made too in the beginning, because again, I was being sponsored by Bungie at the time, and so every time I released a new video, I would immediately have it post. It would immediately show up on Bungie.net's front page. And when Bungie basically gave Halo to Microsoft and they went their separate ways, I didn't have that anymore. And so there was a time when I felt like I was invincible, and then I could do what I wanted when I wanted. And that just isn't the case. You are never too big to fail, and never forget that. And always make sure that you show your fans how much you appreciate them. Think of it like being, in a relationship with, a good friend, or, your significant other. It may be implied that you love them, but it doesn't hurt to at least make sure that you say it to them from time to time. Remember, as I mentioned in last week's video, your supporters are your best friends, and they can be some amazing people, and never shun them, and never think that you're too good for them, because you're not. You will never be, because your channel, my channel, would never get this far without them. They are extremely important to me, so remember that you stay humble too. In terms of if you want to go the gaming route, yes, capture cards are great. Elgato is the one that I have now. It's great for condensing your videos, I should say, formatting them to something that's a bit less in size as opposed to raw data. So that's a good way to go. In terms of cameras, phones at this point have become pretty advanced, so you can probably use that. And there's some other stuff out there too, but I highly recommend doing your own research. And for microphones, I use a Blue Yeti, which seems to be working pretty well. So that's an excellent question. And if you do start your own YouTube channel, Gavin, I highly recommend it, and best of luck to you. Our next question comes from Remy231. And this question is, what game or movie portrays the Master Chief's armor the best? Honestly, and again, this is my own opinion. I know everyone has different opinions on artwork in general. I really liked the way it was done in both Halo 4 and Forward Unto Dawn. That was really the time for me where Master Chief felt like he was a tank, and they portrayed that in the gameplay as well. His suit was heavy, and it was supposed to be, whereas in other games it didn't really necessarily feel that way. I would say the one downside to the Forward Unto Dawn version is they didn't have Steve Downes, who is the voice of the Master Chief in the games, do the voice in Forward Unto Dawn. I kind of understand why, because he was supposed to be a kid in that movie, but it still would have been better to have Steve Downes do it. But in short, I think Halo 4, at least so far, has been the best one. Our next question comes from Spewer Fewer. I would highly recommend it, friend. His question is, if the Flood do return in Halo 6, will they have the same forms from Halo 3, or maybe some will be removed? So this is a great question. I honestly don't... first of all, yes, I believe that we'll see the Flood in the future, just because it's a great way to bring the story to a close, and we haven't seen the Flood in a while. I actually have another video on this matter, but in terms of what forms we'll see... since the Brutes really aren't in 343's Covenant, at least in the AAA titles, I don't think we'll see those unless the Banished somehow make their appearance in Halo 6 or the next major Halo title. So mainly I think it's just going to be carrier forms like we see in all the video games. Obviously the Parasite forms or the little popcorn guys. In terms of combat forms, I think it's mainly going to be humans and elites like we've seen in most games, just because in 343's Covenant, there's only 4 types. There's grunts, jackals, elites, and hunters. We know that grunts and jackals do not have the biomass to become a combat form. They're usually more there to help create the grave mine. And of course, the hunters are just worms, so that wouldn't work well either. So the elites definitely... And again, I've already posted a video that I don't think the Covenant's going to be in Halo 6, that they have spent the last 2 games trying to phase them out in favor of the Prometheans. So, again, I think it's mainly going to be maybe elites from the Banished, or maybe leftover elites from whatever remained of the Covenant in Halo 5, and definitely human forms from the UNSC. So that's a good question. Thank you. Our next question comes from Joseph Lopez. And he says, do you wish the Halo 3 Elite armor, along with the Halo 2 Anniversary armor, would make a return? You know, I really wasn't a fan of the armor in Halo 2, mainly because there were 5 different classes of elites in Halo Combat Evolved that were all very easily distinguishable. Now, when Halo 2 came about, they had several more classes added. It was sometimes harder to tell which ones were which, and I wasn't a huge fan. In terms of armor in general, I'm honestly fine with what they have now. It's not the best I've seen. I would like to see more pointy hats and stuff like we saw in the original trilogy, but it doesn't really bother me either. I think it'd be great to have a shout out to previous games, but it's definitely not the biggest thing on my wish list at the moment. But interesting question, Joseph. Thank you. Our next question comes from Nike117. Oh, I like your number there, Nike. And he asks, would you rather have Jerome or Locke replace the Chief? Great question. So, you've probably seen a video I posted, I think sometime in January, where it was that the Master Chief will probably make his exit, if you will, in the next major Halo installment and bring his story to a close. In terms of who would replace him, Locke? No, no, I do not like Locke as a character. Not because, well, put it to you this way, we haven't really had a great backstory on Locke. He doesn't seem to have a lot of personality. So he has not been my favorite character so far. Buck, I could see a story that we could follow with the Master Chief instead of the Master Chief. But even then, let's talk about Jerome for a second. He is an awesome Spartan. I really do like him. He did a great job in Halo Wars 2. I don't really remember his role in Halo Wars 1, but he was definitely badass in Halo Wars 2. So if there was a Spartan that was going to replace John 117 or Sierra 117 or Master Chief, yeah, I think he would be a great pick for it. So definitely Jerome in that area. So good question, Nike. Thank you. Our next question comes from, the Warden Eternal. Oh boy, what did I do now? So the Warden asks, do you think if Halo 4 had a beta, things would have turned out differently, better, or worse? In short, yes. I don't know if it would have been a significant change, because in the past when we saw, like, for example, the Reach beta, it was only out there a few months prior to the release of Halo Reach. So I don't know if they would have made any of the core changes that would have made the game itself better. Maybe they could have tweaked the Prometheans more. Maybe they could have done something with the, just the multiplayer, making slightly better maps. or just tweaking it a little bit. We had a lot of issues with Halo 4 in terms of the, what is the Forerunner pistol weapon? You know what I'm talking about. But calling it the pocket shotgun, and it was overpowered, limited sprint, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think those things could have probably been ironed out a little bit better had they had a beta and some feedback from customers. So, in short, yeah, I think if they had a beta, they could at least made it somewhat better in terms of the multiplayer. Not sure about the campaign, though. But again, that's an excellent question, Warden, and I will see you on the battlefield, bro. Our next question comes from El Killer Taco. It's the first thing I think of when I walk in a Chipotle. His question is, do you think Halo can ever get as big as it was when Halo 3 came out? If so, how? The short answer is no. I believe that that was a peak for Halo. I think that that Bungie era was the peak of the game. We've seen the numbers of people actively in Halo dwindle over the last several years. And I don't think that it's really going to get back to that point. Even after Halo 3, when I looked at Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach, I didn't really see as much participation with community members as much as I did with Halo 3. To me, that was the peak of the Halo franchise. I don't think I can get back there. Again, Halo 6 may always change the rules of the game. We don't know that yet. If they go with some of the suggestions that I mentioned in the past about having a more open campaign where a player can be more free to choose their own story and maybe even their own ending, it's entirely possible that Halo 6 become, if not as big as Halo 3, at least a very attractive game to come to for people not just within the Halo community but outside the Halo community. In other words, building a community over time that might, you know, as time goes on, get at least somewhere in the range of where Halo 3 was. I think if they work hard enough and they take some advice from fans, it can definitely be bigger than both Halo 4 and Halo 5 combined. So that's an excellent question, Taco. Our next question comes from RAF1172, and Raf asks, in regards to rec packs and your suggestion towards an open-ended new Halo title, would you go Bungie's route with Destiny and have those legendary and ultra-rare weapons available to your Spartan at all times and for any activity, or still keep them locked into just Warzone and Warzone Firefight? First of all, RAF, I'm going to say mad props to you, bro. I am already liking you because you definitely watch my videos and pay attention. So mad props to you for that. In terms of your question, I'm not really sure because I don't think Destiny's weapon system would translate to Halo very well, because keep in mind, with my open-ended idea, I'm not really suggesting that it becomes an MMO like Destiny. It can still be a quote-unquote linear campaign, but one with different paths that you can take. So it would still have a set number of missions per se, but you could do a different, well, let me back up a little bit. It could branch off, essentially. So you can't just travel anywhere at any time. It's you make a choice in terms of what chain of events do you want to follow. So I don't think that that would work well for campaign. In terms of Warzone and Warzone Firefight, if they do keep that for the next Halo game, and I certainly hope they do, yeah, I think that they should definitely keep those things in there. In terms of when you can use them, I think the current system seems to work pretty well. At least I know now that you can't, get a super powerful tank in the first couple of tiers. You have to wait a little bit. So I don't see it transitioning well into campaign, but definitely keep it into Warzone and Warzone Firefight. That's a really good question. Thank you. Our next question comes from Cowboy Kraken. I don't know if that's a rodeo I want to get on. And Cowboy asked, who do you think is more effective, Red Team from Halo Wars or Blue Team from Halo 5? Another great question. So I'll be straight with you. I think Blue Team, because they flat out said it, that they are the most successful team of Spartans ever in existence. They've done more missions than any other team of Spartans. And so clearly they've got a lot of experience and a lot of victories under their belt. Red Team is certainly badass, did a great job with the events in Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2. But do I think they're superior to Blue Team? No, I do not. Kind of like I do not consider Osiris to be even remotely close to Blue Team in that regard. I think they're strong. I think that they're better than Fire Team Osiris, but I still think Blue Team tops it out. So that's an excellent question, Cowboy. Thank you. Our next question comes from Mega Guy 43. That's a cool superhero name. And Mega Guy asks, do you play with aim assist off? You know what's funny? I didn't even realize that was an option. I didn't realize that I could toggle it on or off. So to answer your question, whatever it is by default is how I play. Our next question comes from Floodmaker Productions. Oh boy. So Flood asks, if you could make your own Sentinel, not a Promethean, what would you make? And he goes into an example of something with a booster pack or to shoot forward and explode on impact, like a kamikaze Sentinel. I don't... You know what I would like to do is have something similar to the Enforcer, but not the Enforcer exactly, where it's a larger Sentinel that can maybe heal the units around it and has different weapons that make sense. The Enforcer's weapons in Halo 2 didn't really make a lot of sense because they have projectiles, which does not seem to be a Forerunner thing. They use energy-based technology. So I'd like to see one with maybe dual super Sentinel beams. I'd like to see the pulse lasers come back. Those are the little red dots that the Sentinel Enforcers fired back in Halo 3. Or, I'm sorry, Halo 2. Oh, if only they had been in Halo 3. I know that Masters for SPV3 is working on multiple Sentinel types, including one with a black laser. That should be interesting. A black light laser, that'd be kind of cool. And he's also making so that there are constructors in SPV3, but they're sort of like enemies that can heal other units and while also keeping your shields down without necessarily killing you. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with. But in terms of what I would do, I'd like to see something similar to the Enforcer, but more in line with current Forerunner technology. So that's a great question. Thank you, Flood. Our next question comes from Patrick Thomas, and he asked, do you think Marty O'Donnell will return for Halo 6, and if he does, do you think longtime Halo fans will return? This is an excellent question for a couple of reasons. First of all, for those of you who don't know, Marty O'Donnell is the guy who composed the music for the Bungie era of Halo games, and he started with Destiny as well, and then Bungie let him go. I thought that originally was like an April Fool's joke. I thought Marty O'Donnell was untouchable. His music is beautiful. He is a legendary composer. So as far as I know, and again, I could be wrong on this, he's up for grabs. And it would not surprise me at all if 343, for fans' sake, reached out to him and said, hey, will you join us for the next Halo game? Would he accept? I don't know, because again, if he is loyal to the old style Halo, he may not be okay with working with the new style. At the same time, if he has any sort of grudge against Bungie at all, he might do it just for that alone. Will it bring back legacy Halo fans? Honestly, I think at this point, if they've lost a lot of legacy Halo fans, or the ones that they have lost, it isn't going to be because of the music. It's because of other things. Personally, there's still pieces in Halo 4 and Halo 5 that I really do enjoy. My favorite track from Halo 5 is Worldquake. That's the track that you usually see or hear when things start tensing up or when you go against the 3 Warden Eternals. So they do have good music pieces in both 4 and 5. I don't think having Marty O'Donnell in the next Halo installment would radically change that. But if he's willing to work with them, I would say at the very least it couldn't hurt. And yes, it could potentially bring back at least some Halo fans that were really, really into the music from the first era. So excellent question. Thank you. And our final question of the day comes from Mason Wellborn. And he asks, how do you think Halo 6 will end? So for those of you who have been watching my Monday videos are what I refer to as my project videos. And these are the ones where I usually try to hash out theories for Halo 6 in terms of what the evidence from previous Halo installments has led me to believe will occur in the next major Halo title. And so I've talked about Halo 6 a lot, but have not talked about how I think it will end. Now, as I mentioned previously, I still support the concept of an open-ended campaign where it may have multiple ways of ending depending on which path your character chooses. But even so, I think there could be an overall overarching element to that. And so to that end, there was a subject that was brought up at the beginning of this video about the Precursors. And there is a reason why I think they're going to play a pivotal role in the next Halo game, or if not in that one, at least sometime in the near future. But I strongly believe that, or at least would not be at all surprised if they made an appearance in the next Halo title. So let me fill you in on this a little bit. For those of you who are not familiar with the concept of the Precursors, these are beings that existed before the Forerunners, were around when the Forerunners were there, by the way, but they came before the Forerunners and reached an almost godlike state of existence. And that's sort of how they viewed themselves. And they could do anything, not only just create species, but they could advance them and do what they wanted to. So they were pretty much the guardians of the galaxy in a sense. They also were the ones who built the original Forerunner domain, and I'll get to that in a couple of minutes too. So why do I think that they'll be in the next Halo game, and how this will affect the ending? So when we left off with Halo 5, 343 kind of got themselves into a plot hole at this point. And what I mean by that is Cortana is now the most powerful being in the universe, or whoever is controlling her is now single-handedly the most powerful being in the universe. The Covenant is in ruin, so I don't think they'll be making a huge impact in the next Halo game. We don't know what the status of the Flood is. I still think they're going to make some sort of appearance, but I'll get into that in a second. But Cortana, in terms of how you defeat her, I don't know, because she clearly has the power of the Guardians and the Forerunner armies at her disposal, or more specifically the Prometheans, and she used the Guardians to essentially disable all UNSC technology. And I'm left to assume that that can also apply to the Covenant as well. How you would fight this, I don't know. You know, what would it take except for an outside source? And in this case, the only thing that I can see that has currently been in the Halo universe that could possibly counter Cortana are the Precursors. Now, I realize that in books, and the Precursors were mentioned in one of the trilogies done by 343 Industries. I forget which book specifically. I don't know if it was Silentium or Primordium or whatever. I think it was Primordium that they talked about that, because that's something else we'll get into in a second. But essentially, the domain was originally built by the Precursors. Keep in mind that's what Cortana has control over now. The original form of the domain that was in control of the Precursors was narrow-based. So when the Halo rings originally fired, it took out the Precursors domain, and so the Forerunners basically rebuilt it, and now they've got their own thing going on. But if the Precursors return, I feel like they would be the only ones who would be able to actually manipulate the domain and relinquish Cortana of control over the domain. I don't know of any Forerunners that are left at this point. I know that it's said that all the Precursors died as a result of a Forerunner assault, and that's entirely possible, but I also think that, you know, these are writers that can write anything into the story that they want to, and it's entirely possible that there are other Precursors somewhere out there that will see this change going on and say, nope, that's not right. Because bear in mind that there was a little bit of confusion as to who would control the mantle of responsibility. And it was implied that the Precursors, when they created both humans and Forerunners simultaneously, they chose humanity as the heirs to the mantle of responsibility. Now fast forward to Halo 5 Guardians, more specifically the final mission, and Exuberant Witness explicitly says, I always thought the duty was for it to fall to humans, and I guess in a way it has. So I think that the responsibility is still supposed to be for the humans, and somehow the quote-unquote created, or the AI, somehow hijacked it, maybe again by force from the digitized didact. So that's entirely possible, and I think that if there is a Precursor, at least one, still out there that knows this and detects that something is wrong and the galaxy is now in trouble, he or she or it may step in to intervene and ultimately save the galaxy. So I think that is a strong possibility. I think that the Precursors ultimately bringing a close to this Halo saga is definitely there. They're really the only race that we haven't seen so far, unless you're counting the Flood, because of course the Flood came from Precursor dust. So that's entirely possible as well. So we could see precursors in the form of the Flood or the primordial grave mind, which was the first grave mind that came from a precursor. So, you know, my thoughts are that's how I think it should end, just because it's the last real mystery in the Halo universe. And it would be awesome to actually see these godlike creatures being brought to the screen. And it would be a fun way to bring the series to a close without worrying too much about how people are going to be unrealistically dealing with Cortana. So that's an excellent question, Mason. Thank you so much. So that does wrap up this week's Q&A. If you do have a question for me, let me know for next week's video. You can let me know in the comments below, or you can hit me up on both Facebook and Twitter. Links to my social media can be found in the description below. And if you like this video and you want to see more Q&As, please be sure to share it with your friends or just troll them for the hell of it, because you know it's Saturday. But also, if you like this video and you want to see more, click that subscribe button for more video game related content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on MythicTyrant.com. Don't forget about Q&A Saturdays, because that's where we are now. And don't forget about Sunday Fun Days either. I've got a really good one for you guys tomorrow. It involves one of the women of Xbox that I've had on the site previously, more specifically from Halo 4. So definitely check that out. So now I wanted to get to just the close of this thing. I brought this up at the beginning of the video. Again, the Q&A session is over, so if you don't want to hear about, you know, my thoughts on what's going on overseas right now, you know, this is your time to leave, but I wanted to make sure I put this at the end so that I wouldn't spoil the rest of the video for you. So this has been an insane week regarding the events that happened in Syria. Obviously, most of you at this point probably know there was a very serious chemical attack that is alleged at this point to have been conducted by their leader, Assad. And so there's a bit of a thing going on in Syria, just to kind of fill you in a little bit. And I'm not a fact expert. I try to piece together as much as I can from news articles. I'm sure there's stuff out there that I don't know. But essentially there's a civil war going on right now between Assad's regime and some rebels. And the United States has been on both sides of the war. Mainly this involves the terrorist organization ISIS, and that's why we're in Syria at all to begin with. But as a result of these chemical attacks that killed over 80 people, including, unfortunately, children, and how sad is that, children, the United States, as a result, a couple of days ago decided, you know what, we're going to bomb you. And so our administration decided to launch 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles and strike one of their air bases. And despite the fact that Syria had advanced knowledge of this, still there were civilians that were killed as a result, which is horrifying. And first of all, there are a couple of reasons why this is awful. There are obviously on the surface reasons. We've had tons of casualties as a result of both sides of this thing. But it does concern me a lot, because I understand why the U.S. is in Syria. What is happening over there is beyond tragic. But at the same time, they are their own country. And while I believe we should always provide them with support and aid in terms of medicine and food and supplies, I also believe that getting involved in terms of combat doesn't really help anyone, especially since we can't decide on the side to choose from. At this point, I don't think it's any of the United States' business. And it's not that I don't feel for these people in Syria. I feel truly sorry for anyone who is a victim of not just these attacks, but also the war in general. It's not fair to them. And for those who are seeking refuge in other countries, including this one, I hope they do, because, you know, that's how humanity should work. Help other people, regardless of where they're from. But I think the fact that the United States responded as it did was a disaster. It was unnecessary, and we should not be getting involved to that extent. Not just because I believe that it is not our business to put our foot down in other people's countries and tell them how to run it, because no, that is not our place. We need to worry about the United States. We wouldn't want other countries coming in here and telling us how to run, so we shouldn't be doing that to them. And we shouldn't be doing anything that would put anyone in harm's way in any other country either, because I strongly believe that is not our business, ISIS or no ISIS. But even worse, our president didn't even go through Congress this time. In 2013, Barack Obama, then president, was going to also bomb Syria. And he went the legal route and he asked Congress for permission. Congress said no. Barack Obama did not bomb Syria. Trump did the exact opposite, despite the fact that in those tweets, in those years, he said, do not attack Syria, Mr. President. Do not attack Syria. How stupid are our leaders? Guess what he did? Not only did he attack Syria, he also did it without congressional permission, and that is nothing short of just a catastrophe. It's irresponsible, and it's illegal. He can't do that. It's an atrocity. I think that he should be punished for it, especially since innocent civilians were killed as a result, and it is inexcusable. Whether or not you like Trump, you know, if you do, congratulations, you won the last election, but there's one thing that we have to agree on as a country, and that he does not have the experience that a president should. It's kind of like flying in a plane and you find out that the person flying has never even set foot in a plane before. Maybe they played some online simulators, but they've never actually piloted a plane before. How would you feel about that? Would you want to ride in that plane? And how confident would you feel about reaching your destination? And right now, this guy has the power of the full U.S. military backing him up. And I am truly terrified of this, because keep in mind, Syria is an ally of Russia. Russia is the number one country in the world with, or Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the world, and they recently cut off the airspace hotline as a result of the Syria attacks. I don't want to piss off Russia. I understand saying that I don't want to piss off Russia doesn't mean that I want to support them, but it does mean that I don't want to create conflict with them, because they're the only other power in the world other than us that can effectively destroy the planet with nukes. And I don't want to see that happen. I don't want us to see things escalate from Syria into a potentially World War III situation. And if this is not handled delicately and with extreme diplomacy, I say anything could happen. If you'd asked me a year ago if Donald Trump was going to be president, I would have said not a chance. And he continued to surprise everyone week after week, and he managed to get into office. So at this point, I say anything's possible and nothing is predictable. At the end of the day, my heart goes out to the people in Syria. Again, if any of my viewers out there are from Syria or are currently there or have family and friends there, my heart goes out to you. I hope everyone is okay, and I hope that this situation does not further escalate. So again, thank you for my rant, or listening to my rant. I hope that I didn't offend anybody. It was certainly not my intention. But again, I just hope everyone's okay and everyone's doing well, and I hope the best for everybody. I thank you so much for watching, guys and gals. It's always good to see you, always good to hear from you. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments, you can let me know in the comments below, or Facebook and Twitter. But I'll see you right back here next time, guys and gals. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.